Okay. Well, welcome everybody to our Does Your Business Need E-commerce during COVID-19? We just make sure to ask everybody to stay muted, and if you do have any questions, just post those in the chat box and we'll have a Q&A session after the presentation. But it's my pleasure to introduce Jan Silverman and John Kinney. Jan has been the executive director of the Conway Innovation Center, a business incubator in downtown Conway since 2015. And in her capacity, she's helped many businesses and startups find their way to success. She's a certified trainer in business model canvas and lean startup. In addition to running the day-to-day operations of the center and counseling business clients, Jan develops programs for the organization and writes grants. Prior to the Innovation Center, Jan ran a successful human resources consulting firm in New England called the Silverman Consulting Group. John Kinney runs the Georgetown Innovation Center. He has a passion working with startup companies. The first startup he worked with was the company that would go on to become Sprint. John was the first general counsel of the company. He was attracted to the 5T after starting the DC Tech Council and then worked with John Sanders to form a similar council for the Grand Strand. John spent 40 years as a technology and telecommunications lawyer and businessman, and we appreciate you both being with us today and taking the time to share your knowledge. So Jan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, let's see what we can do here, Kim. Thanks so much for having John and I today. I'm going to see if I can put my screen up here. Okay, that didn't happen. Let's try again. How did I end up at post attendee Zoom? Okay, let's get this one to go away. We will try share screen again, and we will try here. All right, we're getting there. Let's try from the beginning. Okay, can everybody see a screen with blue and white on it?
No, we can't.
Oh, he broke my heart. What are you seeing?
All of us. So if you share your screen, do you have the document open that when you click share your screen, you can select which one that you want and then click the blue button share?
I clicked share first and then hit my presentation. We'll try hitting the presentation first.
Yeah, and then you hit the blue share button that's at the bottom right of that pop-up that comes up.
Okay, the problem is the blue pop-up is not, wait, is that it? No. The problem I'm having is the blue pop-up is not coming up. Let's try again, okay? So here's my presentation. And where would this blue pop-up be? Shouldn't it be along the bottom?
Okay, when you click on share screen, there should be a white box that pops up that says select a window or an application that you want to share. And you would click on, you should see your presentation as being one of those that you can select. And so you click on that item and then you go to the share button that's on the bottom right of that pop-up.
So, okay, so I have my green share button here.
Right.
Which goes away as soon as I go to my PowerPoint presentation, and then it doesn't come back.
Okay, so what you want to do is probably minimize your PowerPoint.
Okay,
and then,
it is.
And then go back to the share button.
Okay, and then pull it from here.
There you go.
How about that? Did that work?
Yep, you got it.
Great. I apologize for that. Let's see here if we can get this to fill the screen. Okay, how does that look to everyone now?
That's great.
Good, good. Okay, well, again, as I said, Kim, thanks. This is certainly a timely topic that, you know, a lot of people are asking about, and even pre-COVID people were asking about, and there's just so much information out there about whether you should be in e-commerce, how does commerce work? Do I have to be a program developer to develop an e-commerce site for my business? So what we tried to distill it down to was, what do I need as a business owner to decide whether to pursue e-commerce? And what can I do quickly to help my e-commerce presence and sales? So we came up with these 4 objectives today. This is the topics John and I are going to cover. We're going to cover introduction to e-commerce, adding an e-commerce site to an existing business, the 5 most popular platforms for e-commerce, and then John is going to talk about Google Business and all that can involve. But first, I have to do a shameless plug, because that's how these things go, right? We're the 50 Innovation Group. As Kim said, John directs the Conway location, and I apologize, John directs the Georgetown location, and I direct the Conway location, both of which are incubators run by the nonprofit 50 Innovation Group, which began in 2014. We started as a 3-year project out of Clemson, trying to prove the hypothesis that tech businesses could be started anywhere, that you didn't have to be in Silicon Valley or in New York City to launch a tech business. Clemson set up 5 incubators in smaller communities around the state, including the one that I'm in Conway, with the help of local leaders and with Coastal Carolina University. Well, the Clemson program lasted its 3 years. I don't know how much they proved, but we're still here. And in fact, we added the 2nd location in Georgetown. So we must be doing something right. What we came to realize here in the Grand Strand area was that there were a lot more people seeking help with business startups outside the technology field. And we expanded our services to include startup and existing businesses in all sectors. We do all types of business planning and consulting relative to both starting and growing a business. But what makes us different is we do not charge fees for any of our services. We're a nonprofit funded by outside sources. We are also different because we're the only incubator in the Grand Strand that has microlending available. And I should add, because it may be of interest to some of you, that during the pandemic, with all the confusion surrounding federal stimulus programs, we helped many businesses through the maze of application processes for those programs. And we anticipate to do that again, should there be another stimulus program for small business. We also have co-working space and private offices for rent, which are very inexpensive in our Conway office. And I know you all are probably closer to Georgetown, and I am certain if you're interested in some type of a relationship like that, that John could figure out a way to make it happen for you. So, okay, on to e-commerce. By the way, did you know the E in e-commerce stands for electronic? If you ever wondered, I was surprised by that. It seems like a misnomer to me. But at any rate, e-commerce is the buying and selling of goods and services using the internet and the transfer of money to complete these transactions. So we all knew that, right? But what's important for us to know is that more and more of the selling of goods and service is going to e-commerce. and some of that at the expense of brick and mortar stores. None of the experts think in-person sales will go away, but more and more sales are going to be transacted online. Last year, 14.1% of all sales in this country were made online. And that was a dollar increase of 300 billion in 1 year. And just since COVID, so from March until now, online sales have increased another 30%. And those of you who are out there who are doing brick and mortar probably say, yep, that was happening at my expense. But in addition, if those numbers aren't enough to convince you that you need to be taking a good hard look at e-commerce, you should know that an e-commerce site is going to boost not just your online presence, but it can increase traffic at your physical location as well. So that brings us to why e-commerce. How did this thing get started? Pre-COVID, e-commerce became popular for business owners because of a low barrier to entry and unlimited audience reach. For consumers, it's attractive because of convenience and access to goods beyond their geographic reach. Let's start with low barrier to entry. An e-commerce website is not a high-risk investment. It is very inexpensive, comparatively speaking, and you don't have to be particularly tech savvy to get started. There's almost no labor cost. You don't have any of the expense of a storefront. And it can have some very interesting low-cost inventory options, including things like drop shipping. And our second big factor from the business owner's perspective is unlimited audience reach. You can sell to your target market anywhere in the world, unlike a brick and mortar storefront, which generally limits you to customers in a relatively close geographic area. And for buyers, the convenience and the access factors have just become monumental priorities with the pandemic shutdowns and social distancing. Operating an e-commerce site requires very complex software, so most businesses purchase a platform. Most platforms require varying degrees of technical ability to fill out templates to create your online store. There are 3 types of e-commerce sites. There's many sites, but the predominant 3 sites are a branded store. And I think that's what most of us think of when we think about an e-commerce website. It's a site owned and operated by the business owner. It's the only way the business owner can get complete control over his or her e-commerce business. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about different platforms for building this branded type of a site. E-commerce marketplaces, these are platforms that sell a variety of goods from a variety of vendors. It's like an online mall. Think of the Amazons, the eBays, and the Etsys of the world. These are e-commerce marketplaces. Then lastly, what you see is conversational e-commerce. Conversational e-commerce refers to social media platforms like Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, you know the long list, where customers can shop through the posts that come up on their news feeds. Some of these sites also have specific marketplaces where you can post items for sale. One very important consideration, and it's this last item on this page, is that you need to pay attention when you're looking at a platform as to whether it is hosted or self-hosted. On a self-hosted platform, you, the creator and the owner of the site, do all of the maintenance, the upkeep, the troubleshooting, and the security for your site. This is frequently what's called the back end of the site. It's the part consumers don't see, but that makes everything happen. On a hosted platform, there's an experienced third party handling all of these chores for you. So you give up a little bit in flexibility to gain a whole lot in terms of a professionally operating system in the back end and all of the things that make your online website run so beautifully on the front part that the consumer sees. So let's say you own a storefront retail location, and I apologize, I learned today that a lot of you are not in retail, but the concepts are the same. So you own a storefront location. A person comes into your store, they browse, they look for items they came to purchase, they touch, they may take a picture of it, they may try it on. A clerk may give them some additional information, and hopefully they buy some items with a credit card and they take those items with them. So that's what we're all familiar with, right? What e-commerce is doing is it's trying to replicate that experience online. For your storefront, all you need is your product and a spot to display it within your store. Sell online, you must have a picture of your product. Either you take the picture or you have a professional take a picture, or you get one from the manufacturer or the vendor. Then you download the photo. Then you upload the photo to the site. And then you download, and then you upload, and you keep doing this over and over again for each item you want to sell. Similarly, you have product description. You have to tell the viewer everything about the item. They can't touch it or see its dimensions or view its multiple colors. They need its model number and its features so they can do comparison shopping. So the description you write must tell them everything about the object they could learn if they were in the store. For most items, you can get a description written by the manufacturer or the vendor, but you must get permission from them to use it for this specific purpose. So again, you write or you copy, you download, you upload, you do it again and again for the number of times or the number of items you have going on your site. So yes, it's very labor intensive to get started. Not difficult, but labor intensive. But you got to remember the photo and the product description, that's your entire sales pitch. You need to get them as close to perfect as possible in the time available to you before your site has to go live. Another very important item in e-commerce is you have to have some type of inventory control. Most platforms come with at least some rudimentary form of inventory control. The best ones work with your POS system, so you know where every piece of merchandise is. Inventory control really is essential to selling online. Imagine taking the money 3 times for the same car. That's really not a headache you need. The last important item is shipping. If you're planning to do any kind of volume, you need a digital delivery service. If everybody doesn't know what that is, a digital delivery service is a service where all of the information is being transmitted electronically to everyone in the delivery chain at the moment that consumer clicks to purchase. Many platforms include this service, or it can be purchased separately. The last thing I wanted to talk about is marketing. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just note on delivery services, if you're very small, you're just starting out, you only have a few items, or maybe you're only planning on selling a few handmade items or something, you can wait for the order to come through, pack it by hand and take it to a delivery company or have a delivery company pick it up. Lots of people start this way. But however you decide to ship, you have to have a plan before you go live. You've got to know how you're going to handle it. Shipping is the bane of customer service. How many reviews have you read online where people made an effort to write a comment about a shipping problem? We all see a lot of them. And then lastly, as I've told you, everything else is important. What's probably most important and may perhaps the most different for a lot of you is the marketing that's involved. It's the most important factor for success of selling online. And the reason for that is that it's different from other types of marketing. You're not just marketing a product. Your buyers have to know where you are online. They also have to know how to find you online. Your storefront location, to an extent, is self-marketing. People drive by and they see you. That close geographical proximity drives people to you. But that's not so online. Potential buyers have to search for you. Online marketing is not just your products. They're almost secondary in the beginning to how can you find us? So I have very quickly just jotted down some inexpensive suggestions that we've given to people here or that I've seen work in other places. And I'm gonna run through them really quickly. Use free local business listings. Send emails to customers and friends. Print your website address on everything you do. I mean, absolutely everything. Like at the bottom of the register receipt, you know, so many places it says, visit us at blank, blank, blank.com. Use My Google Business, which John's going to tell you about in a few minutes. Use your e-commerce site for everything you do online. Link it to everything you do online. And use keywords to help with SEO. You can have a launch party for your site. You could run a contest for the first users of your site. Excuse me. Use your social media sites to drive brand awareness through with videos and posts, and most importantly, click-through systems, which will drive the traffic directly to your e-commerce site. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff out there, and if you brainstorm, you can probably come up with a dozen more ideas specific to the business you're operating on how to get your info out inexpensively. Or Kim, this is for you. You could always call a marketing professional and get help on how to get your online info out there. Our next slide is about tips for building an e-commerce site. And that first tip, I think I've touched on this already, is for a new site, focus on just a few of your best-selling items. I've also had people say, focus on a few of the items that you have way too much inventory on and try to get them out of there. But at either rate, focus on just a few things. It's funny because after I written this, I saw a new e-commerce site come up yesterday, added by a glass blower I know. She just has 7 or 8 items on it, but I know her store. She does her glass blowing there, and then she has a really small shop beside it that she could never do social distance shopping in. But she's doing what she can do to sell some of her creations. I know she must be doing really well because her site's only been up for a couple of days and she was already out of 2 of these items. So the other thing I would say, tip, is devote the labor or outsource the labor in terms of getting yourself set up. If you're jumping in a big way, hire a professional. Building a website, again, is not rocket science, but it's very, very labor intensive. And I know this means you could run into an expensive setup cost, but operating costs are so minimal that it's more than worth it to spend the money on setup. Shopify only costs a few $1,000s per year if you go for all the add-ons. And for that, you're going to get other features that are going to help you run your entire business more smoothly. Wherever you can, automate the process. You don't need the headaches, especially like me, and you saw how technologically challenged I am to push just a couple of buttons. Get inventory control built in. Buy a shipping package if they have it. If this thing takes off, you're going to have to do that anyway. But on the other hand, if you can only spend the barest of minimums, it's easy to scale it and to grow. If you need to get online quickly, just take some snapshots from your phone and use them as placeholders and publish them to your website, even if you have to do it without descriptions. So at least you're just getting something out there. You can always say to people, here, this is what I've got right now. I'm working on a more professional website, but if you need this stuff, here it is. Click on it and I'll get it to you. You know, people are understanding about things like that, and I have bought and know other people who've bought from these very rudimentary looking sites. But lastly, I would say, but certainly don't leave a site up there like that forever. You know, make that your beginning site and work on making it polished and looking professional for the industry that you're in. Lastly, be careful with the legalities. Be careful with things like security and copyright and taxes. And there's lots of online tutorials that will help you with that. And a lot of the platforms that you buy will have those issues built right into them. A lot of them come with tax tables that vary by state, and all those little things that you're going to need to make this really work well. What I'd like to do now is just very briefly run through a few of the platforms that are out there. And I will tell you as a caveat, I've only had experience with a couple of them. So what I am telling you here is mostly a condensation and a consensus of what the reviewers say about them. The first one is Shopify. Shopify is the big daddy of the e-commerce platforms. At the beginning of 2020, so pre-COVID, Shopify reported over 1 million sellers on 467,000 sites on their hosted platform. Some of the pros of Shopify is that they have easy, quick setup, it's inexpensive, it's got good download speeds, it's got good inventory tracking, and most importantly, I think to all of us, Shopify is made to be used by people who have no programming or web development experience so that they can run their own online stores. It works for any business model or any industry. And since they're the biggest, most software apps are developed first to run on their platforms. So as I said, the setup is quick and easy. They give you options. You pick the options you want, you fill in the blanks, and basically you're done. It's very easy on Shopify to track and view orders. They have good analytics, and they post the analytics right on the dashboard, so they're easy to find. They track sales, refunds, and taxes, among other things, right there on the dashboard. Some of the cons are, some of the reviewers think they have weak SEO, but admittedly their SEO is improving. They do have transaction fees and they do have some costly apps, but the per monthly fees are very low. They have 3 packages. They even have a $29 per month package. They have a $79 per month package, which is what I see a lot of people using, and then another one at $2.99 a month. And of course, that just depends on the number and type of services you want. Another good feature about Shopify is that it interfaces with Amazon. For each of these e-commerce sites that I'm going to run through here a little bit, I've put in a couple of websites that you can go to get more information. But I will tell you that this is literally just a couple. There are millions out there, millions of reviews, millions of tutorials. Just, you can get everything you need to know about running these platforms off of the internet. So we use Shopify and Wix in our office when we're helping people do this. And Wix is the second most used platform. Wix is known for making beautiful, very eye-appealing websites. Some people think they have perhaps compromised some of their functionality to get to that beauty. But again, they have been recently recommitted to building their infrastructure. Their SEO seems to be improving. However, most reviewers believe that it's really not a hardy enough platform for medium and large e-commerce. And I would notice too, because I know we have some people here who are in the service industries, Wix does do services, but there is an add-on app that you will have to purchase to sell services. But again, the prices are very reasonable depending on what you want, anywhere between $13 a month and $500 a month. And I wanted to tell you too, and I apologize, I didn't have a lot of time to research this, but Wix has a new product that they're calling Wix Ascend, which has all-in-one marketing. It's a separately priced add-on. And this is what they say it does. Wix Ascend is a collection of apps built by Wix that allows small businesses to manage their contacts, their invoices, quotes, emails, newsletters, website forms, social media contact, workflows, tasks, and reminders, all in one package. Well, that's really attractive to me. I would really like to know more about that, and I'm going to try to find out more. It seems to me like with you running a business and you have all that in one software program, you are getting something that's pretty powerful and it is going to allow you to automate and have a good sense of what's going on in every aspect of your company, at least as it relates to sales. So to buy this Wix premium have this new Wix Ascend, you have to buy their premium package, and then the Ascend is an add-on charge that runs between $10 and $49 a month. Another site that I included in our quick tour here is Square. Now, I included Square here because a lot of our clients are choosing Square for their POS system. And obviously, the beauty of this e-commerce platform is that it integrates easily into the POS and then keeps track of both what's happening online and in store with orders, items, and inventory. So that piece is always in sync between all your locations. Square is also said to have the best analytics all in one place. It also has more sophisticated payment options if this is important to you. They can take both Apple Pay and Google Pay. However, it can get expensive quick. They charge a 2% per sale fee and a 30-cent per transaction fee. And again, this last line here, Square Online Checkout, a new service that lets you sell without a web page. There's not a lot of info, excuse me, out on that yet. But apparently you can go to the, excuse me, the social media sites we talked about, places like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and sell without having a website. So that might be something that would work well for your particular business, and you might want to check it out. So I guess my final comment about Square would be that if you're already using Square as your point of sales or point of service option, I would definitely check into their platform. I also added WooCommerce to our list of sites to consider because it is widely used. The reason that it's widely used is that it runs on WordPress. If you're not familiar with WordPress, WordPress is open source software that anyone can use at no charge to build a website. About 30% of all e-commerce sites in this country run on WordPress, and 37% of all websites run on WordPress. WordPress and these e-commerce sites are completely owner operated, including being self-hosted. So unless you're incredibly tech savvy or you have your own IT department, you're going to have to purchase hosting and you're going to have to purchase back-end support. You probably should purchase security too. So this platform is not as easy as some of the other platforms we talked about. It's definitely not beginner friendly. But if you know WordPress, or if your current website is built in WordPress, it may be the way to go, as it's thought to have the best customization and the best SEO of all of the platforms. It also is free, but there are add-ons to get all of its functionality to work. There is no customer support, which is another reason why it's not good for beginners. WordPress is almost more like a community than a company. You really have to rely on other members of the WordPress community or on blogs if you need to get help. But a lot of professional developers use WordPress. It's a really robust system. And I certainly wouldn't be hesitant to go with it if I were outsourcing my e-commerce site development. There also is a local meetup for users of WordPress. So there is some support out there. It's just not the traditional support we like to have when we're working with computer software. Then lastly, just let me very briefly mention BigCommerce. I don't know if we have anyone here who would fit in this group. BigCommerce is generally built for Fortune 500 companies. It's extremely strong, extremely flexible, and is used by the biggest companies in the world. Toyota uses BigCommerce. So go check out their site if you want to see what the functionality of BigCommerce is. The one caveat I would add to it's best for large companies is it's also good for companies who intend to scale quickly and hope to be Fortune 500 companies quickly. Again, not good for beginners, requires you have to be very tech savvy. But it's interesting, and I just wanted you to see, I think I've kind of given you in this a whole panoply of what's available in the owner-owned and driven platforms for e-commerce. We could really do 2 more sections on what you do to sell on Amazon, to sell on marketplaces, or to sell through Facebook. So I didn't really want to go there today because I felt like that these were probably the sorts of things that people were most interested in, having their own e-commerce site. But if anybody wants to come into our office and talk to us about those, how you sell on those sites, we'd be happy to help you. Now I want to turn this over to John, and John is going to talk about Google Business, which is, well, I'll let him tell you, but it's a pretty easy system that you can get up and running and get a lot of bang for just about no bucks. So, John, I'll go to your first slide if that works for you.
Thank you much. That's perfect. Jan had mentioned a minute ago the issue that, in fact, Square and others have been moving in the direction of helping small businesses and a lot of retailers who don't either have the time or the inclination or the skills to go ahead and drive their business as a result of their website. And one of the things that Google has done, and I think incredibly intuitively, is create a free Google My Business structure. And I know that your association is already up on that structure. You know, when I go to search for your organization, it automatically comes up on the screen, and it's wonderful because in that one, simple set of things, it has allowed me as a person who wants to get to your business, whether that's an association like yours or a professional or retail operation. If you in fact go through the process of signing up for a Google My Business account, what the outside person who does a search, especially in Google, but it should be a search on virtually any platform, especially if they are operating on any kind of a mobile device, which more and more commerce is being done on, what comes up is all of the most relevant information about your business and how to get to your business and how to interact with your business. So, in the slide, it mentions that you put up your own business profile as you would on a website. You manage your presence across the Google platform, and they create for you those hot link buttons that allow a person to do the holy grail of what Amazon was set up to do. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, for years pushed his team to be able to create almost one-click shopping for most of us, and that's been accomplished now. If you happen to have an account with them, as you know, you can order something with about 1 or 2 clicks, and that's how all of us get hooked into buying lots of stuff that we otherwise might not need. But in the rest of our worlds, what the Google My Business allows you to do is if you give them your telephone number, if you give them any website address that you have, if you give them your physical address, if you have one, and that's the beauty of it, you don't have to have a physical address. We have a number of online e-tailers, retailers that don't have an office that they want someone to come to, or consultants that they don't want you coming to them in their home. But if you do have a physical address, you put that in there. All of those pieces of information are going to be able to be interacted with by the potential customer or existing customer with one click. So if I click on the call button, it's automatically dialing directly to your whatever phone number you want. We'll talk about that in a minute. Again, if you've put in your address, it's able to immediately with one click give you directions and bring up Google Map to take you directly to that location. If you've put in your hours of operation, it's very clever the way, I'm on your site now, the Pawleys Island business site, and in a little clock that's down the bottom, it's coming up green with an open indication, and then it tells you the time it's going to close. And if I click on that box, it's also going to tell what the hours of operation are for the rest of the week. So if we're looking for a restaurant location and we want to know not necessarily if they're open now, but are they going to be open at 8 o'clock tonight when I finally am going to get there? And of course, it allows you to help that customer, in addition to finding the business, understand about the business. So you can effectively tell your stories. It allows you to put up various pictures and photographs, the same sort of things that you would put up on your website. You can put up and edit and change as often as you're willing to do. So think of every benefit that you're getting out of a detailed website. Google My Business has really allowed you through a template and for free to put all of that information directly into a page that fits on a smart screen on any mobile device. Not only does it fit on it, but it makes sure that all of the interactivity is done there and done with the speed and power of basically a Google search. So all of us who have gotten hooked on the ability to either ask Google a question and get an instantaneous response, or to to type in something on Google in a search. This site, this Google My Business service is optimized to have that sort of speed and capability, because all of that information is basically stored on the Google site, and you're interacting it with the same Google search speeds that you would otherwise. So it's a very powerful one. Yes, please go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. So as I've mentioned, you're going to be able to, put the location in, put your phone number in, put your website in. But in addition, you can also begin to do those things that you otherwise would have done with your website. You can begin to put up offerings and amenities that you in fact offer. And each month or each quarter, I'm finding that Google has come along and added more and more features. And I'm sure as the granddaddy of all of the sites, of all of the search engine sites and ad sites, it will continue to refine the site and add new features to it on an ongoing basis. So it really, from my way of thinking, is a free, powerful tool. The other part of it that I've mentioned to you is that it will provide you automatically, as the owner of the Google My page, Google My Business page, it will provide you with analytics. So, I was very surprised one day when I clicked on those, because I don't follow it closely. It said 600 people over the last 3 months have clicked on your Google My Business. X number of them clicked and went to your website, or X number of them clicked on your telephone. So it gives you free analytics that people that you otherwise might have no clue were reaching out to you, especially on a mobile platform, but are reaching out to you, that they're doing that, and that they have very often been successful in getting to you in a way that is very intuitive and that helps them find and interact with you. The last aspect of that is that anything that's on the Google My Business page is able to be shared with anyone else. So one of the things that we find is that, I have decided to go out to dinner with five friends. With one click, I'm able to share either through any of the methods that we have, whether that's instant messaging or email or other things. I'm able to share that information for that restaurant that I'm planning on going to and meet up. So they're now going to have the address without me asking me for it. They're going to have the phone. They're going to have the hours of operation. So all of those things you're able to push out to a friend or a business through that share button in a way that makes it very, very simple, especially those directions that a lot of us are troubled by. We don't know where this little tiny restaurant in any of our communities is. The pit is hidden around the corner from 17. You might not know the exact way to get to their parking lot, or your real estate office is not necessarily out with a major sign, and you want people to be able to come to your office for a meeting or a closing or something. So I don't want to overstate it, but for almost all of the customers that come through my door in Georgetown, one of the first things I ask them about is whether or not they are aware of Google My Business. Quite a few of them have not been, and the easy thing for me to do is to bring it up from my phone onto the large screen in my office and say, okay, here is how your competitor is using Google My Business to make it easy for a customer to interact, to get to them and the like. And it becomes pretty easy convincing at that stage. And I will tell you, my experience is it probably takes less than an hour, in some cases a half an hour, to fill out the template. It does take some time for Google to actually verify that you are the person claiming that business, and verifying some telephone numbers and some addresses and things. But again, I know there's no human being at Google that's doing that. That's being done by some AI engine in the back end that just does a lookup and says, okay, we found that person's business, their name, their telephone number, and we verified all that. But so I think you can get up and running on that very fast at no cost, and then layer into it the things that Jan's talking about. If you don't have a full website if you don't have an e-commerce engine like Shopify. The last piece of that, and then I'll go over to my final slide, is that I would mention I have I have 8 grandchildren, but the 2 of them, a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, and an 18-year-old, who were bored during COVID this last year, came back to me and said, we want to set up a sales site online. And before I could even turn around, they had created a Shopify website to sell sneakers and other things in the sports world. And they did it with almost no cost, and everything was being drop shipped. So it meant they had no inventory. All they would do was have a Shopify site that said, would you like to buy this sneaker or this sports thing from me? If you clicked on yes, only at that moment in time did it go over to determine if the inventory was there instantaneously from Amazon or Alibaba or other sites. And then with another click of a button, they were able to get PayPal information. And then it was shipped out from, as Jan mentioned earlier, from that third party. And the collection was all done without them being, wizards at all or marketing wizards, but they had I don't know how many billion people, 3 billion people on the internet as their market. And if they got a tiny, tiny piece of that, they were beginning to make money. Last example of that I would give to you is that Jan and I worked very closely with a gentleman up in Conway who had a foldable kayak. And when he came to us, he was interested in selling through retail stores or through gun shows or other events like that. We had a good conversation with him, got talking e-commerce. In the end, he mastered for himself. He had a great website, but he mastered for himself how to use Google Ads and how to sell on Amazon, and was up to about $100,000 in annual sales with no staff. He was everything, and with minimal cost and only with minimal advertising. He then took a platform that we're not talking about today, but that you should be aware of, and it's called Kickstarter, and it's a group funding platform. And as of the beginning of COVID, he launched that site, and by the end of a 60-day period of time, he had $2 million worth of sales through that site. So, the power to use these e-commerce tools can be very difficult and time-consuming, such as the creation of the websites and the maintenance of the websites. For a lot of other people, you can do it on the lower end, and you can do it on the cheap end and still accomplish some of the same results depending on what your market is. So, we are big advocates for, trying to help anybody in the space that wants to use any of these tools. And the ones we don't know about, we're in a position to find people who are working with us, volunteering their time, who can very often say, okay, I know how to walk people through how to do that. Or we have some partners that are, website companies that are prepared to help people, including monthly meetings that they have for free to show people how to do stuff. So with that one, Jan, if you'll go to that last simple slide. The last thing I wanted to mention to you, a lot of our small businesses are now operating almost entirely off their smart devices, their smartphones, and their tablets. And as a result of that, an awful lot of them don't necessarily now have a separate telephone, a business line phone, or if they're operating out of their house, a lot of them do not even have a home phone anymore. I know I don't. I only have my mobile phone. If that applies to any of you and you're looking for using a single device that you don't have to have 2 separate phones with 2 separate set of lines, Google has created a service called Google Voice. And if you're on the personal side, and my experience so far has been the small business side, you can set that up for free. And what it allows you to do is they will assign you and help you pick a new telephone number in your area code. And then you can basically have all calls that are coming to that number forwarded to your other telephone number. So in my case, I've kept my Washington, D.C. 202 number, and I operate on that for everything that I do because I had so many people in my contact list. They have provided, Google Voice has provided me with an 843 number, and I can offer that out to the public so that they feel they're making a local call, and it can come to my phone and ring and let me know which line it's coming in on. And it's a free service. Even if you are on the business side and there's some fees associated with it, they are very reasonable. And for anybody who has any international calling, the Google Voice side of it is the least expensive international calling that I've been aware of. So if anybody has any questions on that or on Google My Business, glad to answer them.
We've got one more slide, John. You want to just, I'll do it. Just wanted to let you know this is how you get a hold of us. There's pictures of everyone who works here, including our interns, who we are extremely grateful for. But my contact info, John's contact info, and Rob Picano, our marketing coordinator, his info is here. And if you have questions about the presentation today, if you want some help in deciding what you want to do for a platform, if you're trying to work on a platform and you're stuck, by all means, give us a call, come in. We will do our very best to get you up and past that point and going. So I would just say again, thank you. It was very pleasant. And I think we're going to take some questions, Kim, or?
Yep, I think so. And again, thank you both for the time and effort. Some really good, helpful information, I think. If anybody has any questions, you can put it in the chat box, and we'll ask those of John and of Jan. One thing that you all may be researching it as well, but there's a new up and coming platform, Squarespace. We actually have our Pilba site on Squarespace, and it's a very, I'm sure there's some cons, but I haven't found any yet, but it is we can take memberships online, and it's not that expensive. I think it's $289 a year for the hosting and the security, and the processing of transactions. So that may be one, Jan, that you might want to put on your list to research as other options. And it's actually really, really, really easy to use. From a content management standpoint, we can go on there and quickly add events and quickly add latest news and quickly update any of the pages on our website.
Oh, that's new. No, I had not heard of that. So thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any questions? And it's wonderful that you all are available to help and counsel small businesses, because as you all both know, we have so many in this area. So it's nice to know that they can reach out to you and maybe get some one-on-one counseling on any of these opportunities. So
great. Well, we enjoyed it, and like I said, we're pretty flexible. Even though I work out of Conway, I live down in Surfside, so for me to come see someone at their location, if that's necessary, down in Litchfield or Pawleys, really is not an onerous proposition. So don't feel like you have to go to Georgetown, or you can't get to Georgetown or whatever. So the more and more this virus lasts, the more and more creative things we find to do.
Yeah, exactly. Troy asked, and it would be great if you could, Jan, if you could send me just the contact us slide from your PowerPoint, if you could email that to me, and
Sure,
then that way I can send that out to our members, and then of course we will post this this recording on our YouTube channel, and I'll make sure to share that with you so that you can use it however you want to with your organization.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you much, folks. We enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good week.
You too.
You too, Kim.
Okay, Troy, bye.
Bye.